I wake up and count my blessings. No more worries, no more stressing. With every loss there comes a lesson. Lord, all I'm asking is protection. I wake up and count my blessings.
Greetings, my Sid. Translation, hello everyone, and welcome to Conversations with me, a random nobody. Today's conversation is going to be about, you probably guessed it already, the 2020 election. There was no way I could get around doing this episode because this is such a big deal. And today's conversation, I do have a special guest with me. However, I'm not going to introduce her. I'm going to allow her to introduce herself because she's a young lady that is on her way to amazing things. And because she, as a young person, you're still evolving, you're still becoming who you are. So I wanted to give her that power to just, speak who she is, where she's going, and, what she's all about. I think you guys are going to enjoy this conversation with her and I. And there's also another special treat in this episode. I actually reached out to some of my amazing family members and friends and asked them to fill me in on who they voted for and why, and also the direction they want to see the country go in the next 4 years. So thank you again to everyone who participated. And guys, let's get into this conversation. All right, so tell us a little bit about who you are, what you've been up to, and some of the things that you're looking forward to in the future.
All right. Hi, I'm Taylor. Recently, what I've been up to, I just turned 21, so I've been trying to enjoy that as much as possible.
Okay.
So, all these COVID restrictions, my birthday was a little bit different than I imagined it, but still trying to have fun. I'm a senior at Penn State, so I'll be finishing up my final year in the spring. So that's really exciting.
Wow.
And I also have been studying for the LSAT. I'm taking it the last time next week, actually. So I'm going to be in the application process of applying to law school. So I have a lot on my plate right now, but I'm really just trying to keep myself grounded and together, like amongst all this stress of everything going on in the world. But
all right.
I'm doing pretty good.
Yes, I think you are as well. So thank you for that amazing introduction. All right, let's get into this conversation because you mentioned being stressed and I'm trying not to be stressed. I'm like, how am I going to pass this time? I don't want to watch the news. I don't want to get too excited or too, disappointed on anything. So I'm just kind of, just rolling with the punches. Okay, so your first presidential election.
Yes.
All right. Now, what are you hoping to see from this election?
Well, all in all, I'm hoping we go blue as a country. I'm hoping Joe Biden will be in office for the next 4 years. And it's not even that I'm really hoping for a lot of change, because I think Joe Biden, a lot of us recognize that he's really just a return to the status quo. But I feel like the status quo is a lot better than the other option right now. Mm-hmm. So I'm just trying to get back to some form of normalcy, and we can plan ahead for the next 4 years after that. As long as you're this election.
Sounds good. Now, compared to 2008 with Obama, which election do you think is bigger?
Oh, see, I was in third grade.
Oh my gosh.
Election.
Stop it.
It's true. But the weird thing is, even as an 8-year-old, I realized how important those elections were. My school even did this little mock election where all the students had to go vote in a little voting booth, and they announced at the end of the day who won. At that time, that was Mitt Romney versus Obama, right? 2008. Yes. Mm-hmm. Romney won for my school. I know that.
Wow.
But I honestly think that this election is much bigger. There's so much more at stake, it seems. And maybe that's just me being so young during the first Obama term, not really understanding all of the issues. But I think that there's just a lot more at stake with civil liberties now than there were then.
Okay, and I think it was actually John McCain. Was it John McCain or Mitt Romney? Was it?
Those two.
You were in third grade. I should know. Yeah. So you already mentioned that you are affiliated with the Democratic Party. You voted for Joe Biden. If there was a candidate, or if Donald Trump had the things that you were looking for, like he checked every box on your list, do you see yourself voting outside of your affiliated party?
Oh, I definitely think I'm not tied at all to the Democratic Party.
Okay.
Because honestly, sometimes looking at the platform, there's a lot of, we want this for your community, we want this, like we believe in like rights, but I realize as I get older, a lot of that is just talk to get votes. So I think I don't feel obligated to vote Democrat or straight ticket Democrat just because I'm registered as one.
Mm-hmm.
I will always vote for the person who aligns most with my own beliefs.
With that being said, right, with our current president, he seems to have a lot of support. And from my own perspective, he's not my choice. I don't care for him at all. So for me, it's hard to look at him in a light where it's like, oh, he's a great man. He's done this for our country. Appreciate him. It's hard for me, right? Some people it's not. So I'm wondering, do people actually love and support him, or are they more tied to that Republican ticket? What do you think?
I feel like some people are really just tied to their party, but maybe they love his rhetoric. I genuinely feel like sometimes, like, I think he's very kind of erratic and he'll just say things off rip that a lot of people would perceive as being really bold, and like they like that he doesn't try to censor himself. I think that a lot of people that like talk about political correctness doesn't belong in like elections, like we should just be able to speak how like we think. I think that people like that he's not trying to sound like a candidate, he's not trying to sound like a politician. So I mean, maybe I think that's a really big reason of why some people like Donald Trump. But I think another one is just what would you call that, loyalty to the Republican Party.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually interesting. I was having this conversation with my boyfriend the other night, and I feel like a lot of people, especially younger people, like the millennials and then the Gen Z people who may be able to vote now this election, I think that there's a lot of familial obligation to vote with the party that your family votes for. A lot of people, especially younger people, I don't think spend the time to read up on the issues, try to educate themselves on like what these people supported in the past, if they changed at all, like what they actually want to do with these next 4 years. I think a lot of people just see what their parents do, what their friends do, and just copy that, unfortunately.
Like you said earlier, you did vote for Joe Biden. Tell me what it was about him that got your vote.
Honestly, voting for Joe Biden, that was such a hard thing for me to do because I was Bernie Sanders all the way. That was my guy. I am still not happy with the fact that we have failed Bernie twice. Like, we will never see that man in the White House, and that breaks my heart.
Aww.
But it really does. But honestly, the reason that Joe got my vote is because I was just vote Trump out at any means. Like, by any means necessary. I did not want to see that man in the office for another 4 years. So Joe kind of was the only option. I think that him choosing Kamala Harris as his vice president, that also appealed to me because I'm like, okay, he's trying to appeal to other communities, maybe trying to right some of those wrongs and like that he did in the 1990s, trying to appeal to the Black and other the Asian community. But we'll see. It was mostly just I didn't want to vote for Donald Trump, and I didn't really want to vote third party because I know it's not really throwing away your vote, but it kind of feels I didn't want to split the Democratic vote, and the popular vote ends up in Trump's favor.
Gotcha. Sounds good to me. Now, what I want to ask next is about race and Donald Trump. Are you familiar with what he said about the Black Lives Matter movement?
Yes.
Okay, so he said it was like hate-filled, and the first time he came across them, they were saying pigs in a blanket, fry him up or something like that. And so that's what he took away from that. You know, and in contrast, when the protest was happening in Charlottesville a couple of years ago, he said that there were very nice people on both sides. What I got from that is, why couldn't he take the time out to familiarize himself with Black Lives Matter as much as he's familiar with the white supremacy groups to kind of draw a different conclusion, right? So yeah, what do you think about Donald Trump and race? Why doesn't he like to confront it and talk about it and address the issues that people are fighting for? What are your thoughts on that?
I feel like I don't necessarily want to say that Donald Trump is racist, but I feel like if the shoe fits, no, let me stop. I don't. I think that he's just genuinely ignorant, but he's willfully ignorant at the same time. Everyone has access to the internet. You live in Washington, D.C. right now. It's a melting pot of different cultures because he's not just ignorant to the Black community and the plight of Black men and women and Black Lives Matter. He's ignorant to Asian cultures, to Indigenous people. It's really sad to see. I think that also because of the support he has from white supremacist groups, I don't think he necessarily wants to go against them by supporting Black Lives Matter. It's like, if you actually look at his supporters, the KKK, Identity Europa, Strong Boys, like a lot of alt-right groups support him. So I don't think he wants to come out and recognize the Black Lives Matter protesters as being good people, because that completely goes against what those groups stand for.
And it's hard for me to separate white supremacy, Proud Boys, KKK from Donald Trump, because I don't think that he's trying to separate himself from that either. So when I see a Trump flag flying, I don't see amazing things that he's done for the economy or the plethora of things that his supporters say he has done. I see what directly affects me, and I don't see him supporting people that look like me, and there are some who believe and who says that he does, but I just don't see it. So when you come across a friend who's a Trump supporter, or you see the Trump flag and MAGA, what do you see when you see that? What speaks to you when you see those symbols?
This is a really good question, actually. And it's crazy because I was just talking to my best friend about this. We were just saying how back in 2008 and in 2012, 2008, we're really young for the first Obama term. And whether it was Romney or McCain, whether it was one of those guys,
right?
We never felt as though the Republican candidate was racist. We never felt as though people who were Republican and voting for the opposite side were racist and didn't like us because we were Black. And I feel like at 8 years old or 12 years old, that's when you would have that fear the most, because you wouldn't realize like how people are, how the world works. It's kind of like, you would call it an irrational fear of a child. Like, just because these people don't think what I think, they hate me. Now with the 2020 election, we both said like it's a different feeling. When I see someone who has a Trump sign in their yard, I've literally said, if my car broke down at night in front of someone's house with a bunch of Trump signs, I don't think I would go knock on their door for help out of fear that it would actually be a racist. I know not all Trump supporters are racist. I'm sure that there are people that are voting for him for different reasons, whether it's economic or like globalist policies, things like that. But you have to realize that you are voting for a candidate that's supported by the KKK. You're voting for a president who white supremacist groups flock to him and agree with things he's saying. And whether his rhetoric isn't what's getting you to vote for him, you should notice that there is a problem in that you are voting for the same person who is supported by a white supremacist.
Yeah.
So I think when I see Trump signs now, I just genuinely think that it might be a person who might not have my best interests at heart, who want to maybe harm me. And maybe that sounds irrational, but growing up where I did and seeing the aftermath of the 2016 election, I think it's a very rational fear to have.
And like you said, no, every Trump supporter is not, as blatantly racist, or, they may not support that part of Donald Trump. However, it's just so hard for me, like I said, it's to separate it because it's what we see. Mm-hmm. And maybe I need to do more work on myself where I am more accepting. And I think I'm pretty accepting, because if I were to if I were to break down in front of Trump signs, I'm a just, no, I'm not. I'm sorry, and I have family and friends who do support Donald Trump and I love them, but everyone's not like them.
Yeah.
And so that's where it's hard for us to know who is who. And that's a tough one, I think.
Yeah. I think being able, like, people don't realize that being able to separate that part from Trump, like that racist rhetoric, the white supremacy affiliations, like being able to separate that from like his economic politics or other things that he is for. I think that people don't realize that that's a privilege within itself. Like, you and I are both Black women. Like, the things that he says about the Black community, the things that he said about women, those are things that affect us every single day. So
you are on it. You are on it.
To separate that.
Let's talk about the people that think that their one vote is not going to change anything, right? So there are some that have decided that they are not going to the polls. They're not showing up. They don't like Biden. They don't like Trump, or they just don't think voting matters. What would you say to people like that?
I would say your vote matters. And if your vote didn't, they wouldn't try so hard to suppress your vote. They wouldn't try so hard to like bar certain groups of people from voting. If voting didn't matter, felons could vote. If voting didn't matter, you wouldn't need ID to be able to vote. Like, they want you to believe that your vote doesn't matter so that you won't vote. Whenever I hear people say that, I just have to roll my eyes. I go, oh, They wouldn't try so hard to stop people from voting if your vote did not matter.
Right. And what I think is important when it comes to voting, I feel like people need to realize that the presidential election is not the most important.
You got it. Yep.
Change comes not from who's president, but who's in Congress, who's the senators, who, that's where the change comes. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Even local government, like the people that are in control of like your gerrymandering lines, your schools, like the funding that comes to your school districts, what your curriculum is, like all of that is so important. The president, I used to say this all the time when I was little, the president is really a figurehead. The Congress and the Senate have so much power. The Supreme Court, they have the most power. They literally decide on cases that create laws that become the fabric of our nation. So while like the presidential election, of course, like people come out every 4 years and they vote in large numbers, and people that don't vote in their like primaries, that don't vote in their local government elections will vote in the presidential election, and that's great. But you should get out for every election possible because your voice matters. On those small scales, like those small elections are what really will affect your everyday life.
And I don't think people realize that is so important, becoming familiar with your local government. Because when all of that happened with George Floyd back in June, I actually wrote a letter. No, I actually called the state senator for our area out here where we live. And she never called me back, but she sent me a letter addressing, quote unquote, what I, asked her in my message. And I read the letter and I knew that it was just something that was sent out to everyone. And I'm on a group on Facebook. And in that group, someone received the same letter. Like, they wrote her a letter about something different than what I even spoke about, but they still received the same letter. So someone who can't even take the time out to call me back is not someone who I want representing me. So I have to know when those elections are being held and show up as much as I'm showing up for now for the presidential. Yeah.
You have to be really educated, because there is a person who I actually know who's in our state senate. His son was in my grade when I was in high school, and he sat next to me in my philosophy class. his son was so unbelievably, like, till this day, probably one of the most problematic people I have ever met. Like, racist, sexist, xenophobic, like anything, you name it, he was just the worst. I remember even my senior year, he took a picture of a group of like Black freshmen and like said, "Oh, like I love watching Planet of the Apes," something like that. And
wow.
he did not get in trouble for that, really. I think got 1 day detention, even though so many people reported him. But his father is actually in our state senate, and he will go on racist rants on Twitter all the time. And his dad will just be like issue an apology because people will contact him saying like, this comes from home. Like 15-year-olds don't think this way unless this is something you're talking about at your dinner table. And he'll just issue like a little fake apology, like, "I'm sorry you guys are so sensitive," and it gets brushed under the rug, and that's it. Every time, I just can't wait until I have the opportunity to vote again so I can just say no to this man and try to vote him out of office, because I know he must say some crazy stuff behind the doors.
Oh, yeah. I think that's where a lot of truth is revealed behind closed doors. All right, Taylor. Well, that is it for now.
Okay.
But as we wait for these results, as they are continually trickling in and rolling in, why don't you join me to listen to some of the phone calls I made earlier to family members and friends, asking them who they voted for and why. Are you up for that?
Oh, yeah. I'm excited.
And then when we get back, we'll be a little bit closer to knowing who our new president is.
I cannot wait. I'm so excited. I'm so anxious. I can't wait.
I know. Me too. All right, let's listen to some of these phone calls.
Okay, great.
I voted for Biden.
And what made Biden get your vote today?
Well, there's a lot of different reasons. One, my body, my choice. That's probably one of the bigger ones. I support LGBTQIA rights. I support not dividing this country and bringing us together and supporting people of minority groups. Legalize marijuana. And what was the other one? Oh, let's be green. Like, let's invest in preserving our planet. Why are we doing things why are we doing things that are hurting the planet when we can create jobs from, doing things that benefit the entire world?
And if Biden wins, where do you see the country headed in 4 years?
Well, I can hope that things become a little more even-keeled. I'm sure things will not be, things will be chaotic for the next several weeks, months, who knows. This is a big election, obviously.
Yeah.
But I don't think people are going to see their pay cut or their wallets cutting, taxes taken out like they think it's going to happen. I don't think we're going to turn over to socialism that, every Republican thinks and is afraid of. I think that it's just going to, I think America is probably going through a rock bottom right now, and something either bad will happen or we'll have to learn from it. So, I don't know if you've been there or people have hit a rock bottom, whether it's addiction or just, for me, I had an injury and that kind of spiraled me into a depression. And so you find your way out, right? You figure out a way to make things better. You live with what you have, you accept and move on. So I think that America is either it isn't at its rock bottom yet. It could hit its rock bottom when with this election. But I think there's only one way to go from there is up. Right. So I think that things will start to progress slowly but surely.
So did you vote?
No.
Oh, wait, I wasn't expecting that. Wait a minute. I wasn't expecting that answer. Okay, so tell me why not?
Don't like either candidate. If I went to vote, I probably would have voted for Kanye West.
Okay.
So, yeah. It's the lesser of both evils. Like, both of them are mean, both of them are dirty, both of them are racist.
So
I don't think we win with either one.
Okay, so you feel like the country can't get any worse if Trump does 4 more years?
Yeah, it's just like when Bush did his 8 years.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like when Bush got reelected and did 8 years, ran the country into the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Some good came out of it, but I just don't think it's not going to hurt the country if Trump wins again. It's just going to get worse. It doesn't get any better with either one, in my opinion.
So did you vote today?
I did not actually vote today, but I did early vote where I got the absentee ballot and then I dropped it off in the voter's box at a local high school near my house.
Okay, cool. And who did you vote for?
I voted for Biden.
All right. And what about Biden made him get your vote?
Well, I will say, honestly, there was nothing in particular about Biden. And just as a backstory about myself, I don't follow politics. I don't watch the news. I don't read newspapers. So I'm not at all informed on any of the candidates that were on the ballot. However, I voted for Biden as an action to actually vote against Trump. So I kind of went with the lesser of two evils, if that's, how I can say it.
Mm-hmm.
So I cannot speak directly to anything that any plans that Biden or his campaign is promising the nation or anything like that. I just kind of went with who I thought would have the most chance at getting Trump out of office.
Even though you don't have a particular stance on either candidate, where do you hope to see the country in 4 years from now?
I definitely hope to see less of the bigotry, less of the racism. Although when I did give that question a thought, actually earlier today, to myself, I was just wondering, how could that take place? I don't know that it could take place in 4 years because I feel like the negativity that the country has seen since Trump has been in office is so out of control and so just blatant at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But my hope is that could somehow get under wraps to where it was before it started. I know racism probably will never, ever go away, but at least they can kind of go back into their little holes under their rocks or wherever they came from. But then I also hope that we do see more justice in the Black community as far as Black Lives Mattering and us not necessarily being targeted and disrespected and just not treated equally. But again, I'm not absolutely sure on how that would happen, but it would be something that I definitely would absolutely love to see within the next 4 years.
Who did you vote for?
I voted for Donald Trump.
All right. So Donald Trump got your vote. What was it about Donald Trump that made you vote for him?
To be completely honest, it really wasn't anything about Donald Trump, but it was more so the policies behind him. Being as though I am a Christian, I am a Christian first and then a human after that. That's how I like to look at things. So I had to vote my values, and his policies seemed to line up better with my Christian values.
And so if he is reelected, where do you see the country going in the next 4 years?
My prayer is that God will continue to use him to expose. I believe that over the last 4 years, he's been able to be used by God to expose a lot of corruption, a lot of phoniness amongst politics, even amongst people. And my prayer is that in that exposure, more people will start to see God in this and get beyond the man and start seeing policies, no matter who's in office.
Okay, so I voted for Joe Biden. I trust that Joe Biden is going to do more to unite America than our current president, Donald Trump. Joe Biden is going to throw water on fire within our communities.
I like that.
When it pertains to race, when it pertains to race baiting, and Donald Trump is only throwing fuel on fire.
And where do you see the country going in the next 4 years if Joe Biden is elected?
When Joe Biden is elected, the country, he's also going to be followed by a blue wave in the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
And when he is elected, they are going to start to push forward legislation, economic, starting with a stimulus package that they've already passed, but Mitch McConnell refused to have a vote on.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to get passed immediately to provide relief for Americans in cities and rural areas that are in dire condition. They are also going to help out small businesses that are the backbone of the American economy.
Mm-hmm.
And they are going to re-establish regulation on large businesses because as we have already seen within America, when you give a billionaire a tax break and that billionaire is allowed to then keep $10 extra billion, it doesn't trickle down. That billionaire does not give the mail clerk at his company an extra $50,000 in bonus or in pay. Instead, what happens is that billionaire takes that extra $10 billion, gives $2.5 million in stock options to his CEO and upper executives, pockets the rest. And so we're going to see sweeping reforms on the business end. We're going to see an America that has never lived up to its constitution or preamble statements. We're going to see people actually start to come together. I think we've seen the ugly side of America, but we've never seen it this bad in person, especially for this generation, because for a lot of us, we've been so far removed from the 60s and the marches. So a lot of our youth became not complacent, and the correct word wouldn't be ignorant. They're just so far removed from blatant racism, and then for them to see it firsthand, especially from the POTUS, we're gonna see people start to bridge the gap.
I exercised my right to vote.
I know that's right.
I voted.
All right, and who did you vote for?
I voted for Biden and Harris.
Okay, and what was it about them that got your vote?
I guess I want to say, not sounding like everybody else, but maybe the lesser of the two evils. But knowing what Trump has been doing for the 4 years that he's been in office and the years prior to him getting into office, I feel a little bit better with Biden, knowing that he was in office for 8 years already. So he does have a understanding, and I feel like he is more of a common ground when it comes to the blue collar class, or, you know, people that's not making $1 million. He understands what it's like, what it feels like. So I feel like him coming from the bottom, I guess I want to say, he has a better mindset moving forward.
Nice. And if Biden and Harris actually win tonight, where do you see the country going in the next 4 years?
I hope that I see money going into historically Black colleges and universities. I hope that I see money going back into the education system, and not just the schools itself, but the things that surround the education system, the child care and things of that nature, and having some programs for the youth to attend to, so that way they don't have so much idle time to create crimes or, you know, to do other little mischievous behaviors.
And who did you vote for?
I voted for Biden.
Okay, what was it about Biden that made him get your vote?
Many things. Now, I want to say that I am independent. I'm not registered Democrat. I'm not registered Republican.
Okay.
And in the last election, I actually voted third party in 2016 because I didn't like Trump. I didn't like Clinton. And so I actually voted for the Green Party. But I was not a Trump hater. Like, when he was elected, I just said, I hope he does well. You know, it would be, if he does well, it's good for the country. So I'm just going to hope he does well. So I gave him a chance, and, you know, there wasn't a moment where I woke up and I just said, like, that's it, I've had enough. It was a very slow process of constantly being disappointed. I don't have a lot of policy issues when it comes to voting. I really just care about leadership. Leadership just makes the type of leader you are makes all the difference in the world. And I just don't think that he is a good leader. It's clear to me that he has very archaic views on women and on minorities. All the talk about immigration in 2016 kind of made me cringe a little bit. You know, like, every immigrant is a criminal. You know, and just recently he said to he loves to talk to the suburban housewife. And I don't know percentages off the top of my head. Like, I'm just a regular person, but I would venture to guess that most suburban housewives are also employed people. And he keeps saying, "Don't worry, suburban housewives, I'm going to send your husbands back to work." And And it's like, what is your view on women?
Right.
Like, you know, I heard that 7 million of the unemployment claims in America were filed by females
Wow.
who had jobs. You know, so he's not a guy who says, I'm here to serve everyone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here to serve America.
Right.
You know, I think he's a guy who says, I'm here for a very specific audience,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm here to please a very specific audience. And for the last 4 years, you know, everybody who's on the outside of that very specific audience hasn't benefited at all from his presidency, and
Wow.
have actually probably been harmed in more than one way.
Final question. Where do you see the country going in the next 4 years if Biden wins?
What I'm hoping for when I voted for him, I'm really hoping that we get back to a place where people allow the truth and science and people who we regard as experts to help lead our policies and our laws and things that we invest in as a country. And it seems to be anything that's based on science and facts
Mm-hmm.
for the last 4 years have been questioned. And it's okay to question, you know, we should always question. But at the end of the day, we should say certain people in the world and certain people in the United States know more about this than I do.
Right.
It's amazing how we've said for the last 4 years we haven't been able to listen to reason. And we've had to have arguments with our friends and our family members about things that are just common sense.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Okay, so did you vote?
Absolutely. I casted my ballot, my early voting ballot 4 weeks ago.
Oh, wow. So early. All right. And who did you vote for?
Biden and Harris.
All right. And what about Biden-Harris made them get your vote?
To be perfectly honest, one, Kamala, you know, that's my girl. You know, I don't care about, you know, her trek to, you know, how she got here. I'm just impressed with her tenacity,
Mm-hmm.
her poise, her intellect, and like her just, you know, her how she presents herself, how she represents women of color,
Mm-hmm.
People of color,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and she's not meek and passive, and but she's not on the other extreme, boisterous and, you know, approachable, you know, those stereotypes, those single stories of women of color.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that's why. And also, most importantly, to get that orange thing out of, and his minions out of power. I mean, the political power
Mm-hmm.
in this country. You know, that's it. You know, I want to see the Senate seats flip.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's time for them to go as well. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And if Biden-Harris wins, where do you see the country headed in the next 4 years?
Well, I see the country being stabilized because that's what we need right now.
Okay.
And definitely tonight is this administration changed the whole fabric. It pulled the loose string, unloosed the fabric of the United States, the very thing that kept us, you know, either quiet, conform, whatever it is that had our country in a place that we've always been regarding complicity, however you want to look at it. This man has unhinged that. He's been unhinged, so he's unloosed that. Tonight is going to change our country. Mm-hmm. Whoever wins, it's going to change our country. So the first thing we need when they get in office is some stabilization, meaning we've got to come together. We'll never be like we were. So the whole idea of making things like they were, no, that's a myth. And if we are thinking in those terms, then we are mistaking ourselves, because the protests, the months and months of protests that are not going to change if the political agenda is not adhered to, then we're going to continue to see it, but we're never going to be the same. So stabilization, and then holding them accountable for what they've said they're going to do for this country. So stabilization, yes, and then a change.
Did you vote?
I did early voting last week.
Okay, and who did you vote for?
I voted for Biden.
All right, and what was it about Biden that got your vote?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing, honestly, is not Donald Trump. But I've always either voted for the independents or Democrat.
Okay.
So even though I'm not a registered party member, I usually do vote for the more liberal candidate because I tend to find that they're more inclusive and they appeal, in my mind, to a wider range of people, and that's important to me.
If Biden wins, where do you see the country headed in the next 4 years?
So if he wins, I like to think that we will hopefully move back a little bit more toward the center, and that people will feel more represented and not marginalized. I just think, and hopefully more united, but, that depends on the people. People have to want to feel united for that to work. And I do think he is better at that. When you listen to him speak, it seems that that's more important to him. And I can't say that is the case with the other candidate. If Donald Trump loses, he is not going to go quietly.
Right.
And that is not, I think that speaks to his personality. He is not about bringing people together. He really isn't. He's about winning. And he has very thin skin, and he can't take anything but winning. So on his way out the door, he's like a toddler.
Right.
He might give up the toys, but you're gonna hear about it. So over the next 4 years, I would hope that people, we kind of, can start moving back towards some equality for people, some inclusiveness that I feel like has been, frankly, missing. If Joe Biden doesn't win, I don't know what the hell's going to happen. And I don't like to think about it.
Right.
To be perfectly honest. I like to, I'm a person of faith, so I like to think that there's some other controls that are beyond us that, will, my mom used to say, God protects fools and drunks. And hopefully God is going to, be sovereign in this. And if Trump wins, that there's some protection for us. And that sounds maybe, I don't know, man. Maybe that's naive.
I voted previously.
Okay, so you did early voting.
I voted by mail.
Okay, all right. And who did you vote for?
I voted for Biden.
All right. And what about Biden made him get your vote?
He's not Trump.
Is that the only reason?
Just about.
Okay. So if Biden wins, then where do you see the country headed in 4 years?
Well, calmness and a restoration of, how can I put it? What I view is civility in politics, not, like there's a certain decorum that comes with being a politician. If you don't know how to, behave in a certain manner, then you're not worthy of the office. I believe that the man's fit for the office. Because it's also part of being, part of being the leader of the country. You're a statesman, so you have to meet with dignitaries from other countries. And the person that's in power right now, I just don't believe that he holds the temperament and the character to be the leader of this nation, even though he has for the past 4 years. And you see where it's gotten us.
Did you vote today?
Yes, I did.
And who got your vote?
Actually, President Trump.
Donald Trump. All right. Now, what was it about Donald Trump that made him get your vote?
Well, it's a very, very unknown fact of what he did for the Black community. One of the first things that won my respect is how he did the historical Black colleges funding. In the past, every president make them come to the White House to ask for the funding for a photo op. And he did it for the first time, and he thought it was like so disrespectful. He's like, we're never going to deny you access, and I'm not going to make you come in here hat in hand. So he made it a 10-year permanency where they don't even need to come to ask for it. They were going to get it automatically for 10 years. Also, people don't realize that the unemployment rate in the Black and Hispanic communities are at an all-time low for the first time in 50 years. And also, he, out of all the presidents, he led the most partisanship for African Americans, particularly one African American female that was doing life in prison just for selling weed. and he won her freedom. So it's a lot of stuff he did for blacks that is not being reported, and it's a little unfair. Being a military guy, I know that he's keeping our enemies at bay, like Russia, China, North Korea. They're scared of him, and that keeps us safe.
Okay. And if he is reelected, where do you see the country going in the next 4 years?
Well, within our community, still going up because of what, I don't know. You need to research his platinum plan for the African American community. It was to instill more money into the communities, not as a handout, but for more entrepreneurship, business ownership, and just jobs.
Okay, so who did you vote for and why?
I voted for Joe Biden. And I voted for Joe Biden because he is the shit sandwich that does not have mayonnaise and raisins on it.
Oh, wow. Okay. So if Joe Biden wins, where do you see the country headed in the next 4 years?
With the fact that he has VP Kamala Harris with him, I can see it being more lawful and not necessarily in a good sense, but I can definitely see more order. I see it leaning towards more like a fair and balanced kind of society where the color of your skin won't go against you, but it can definitely help people. Because I think this year a lot of people also realize that people of color and black people are being targeted because of the color of their skin. So I think with those two in office, there's going to be an anti-racism kind of like movement to push through this country. And what sucks is you're gonna have the racists pushing back. So it's gonna be a wild 4 years, man. No matter
which way it goes.
Yeah, if Biden wins, I think it's gonna be a breath of fresh air. Like people can breathe a little bit easier. If it's Trump again, we're gonna be pinching our noses to eat a shit sandwich for another 4 years.
I don't really like shit sandwiches, to be honest.
Shit sandwiches are trash. I've never had one, but I've been standing up in a deli that has a whole bunch of them on display right now for the past 4 years, and I don't appreciate the smell of the shit sandwiches.
So what I gather from the phone calls, you can tell that we did have a lot of Biden supporters. However, the one thing that I took from the phone calls was that each person is looking for some sort of unity and just community amongst the nation. And I think that's, something that is not too bad to expect from a candidate.
Yeah, I think that's something really like we should all expect from our candidates. Coming together is so important.
Absolutely. And I'm happy that I did have, some people who voted for Trump to voice their opinions because, like you said earlier, every Trump supporter is not horrible, is not a bad person. So I'm happy that, we're able to reach out and still be able to have conversations with everyone. I think that's important.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into these results. What are you looking at over there?
So I've just been looking at states that were some swing states that Biden has won over, like Arizona. I'm seeing that he is leading in a lot of counties in Pennsylvania.
Wow.
Overall, it is looking like in the popular vote, Biden's been winning the big states.
Oh, wow. Okay. And what I'm looking at over here, Taylor, because, this is what they say matters, are these electoral votes. So CNN is saying Biden has 203, Trump 125. Fox is saying Biden 223, Trump 148. And the Associated Press or Google, I'm not sure. I just Googled it and it says Biden 209, Trump 118. Is it too early to get excited? Because I'm not trying to get my hopes up. I'm not trying to get my feelings hurt. These electoral numbers are looking promising, but what say you?
I say they sound like really promising, and it's hard not to get your hopes up, but I'm going to try to keep it reeled back because I don't want a huge disappointment like 2016, even though I feel like that was more of like it seemed like that was more of a rough climb, but this seems like he's really pulling ahead in numbers. So I'm excited, but I'm going to try to keep it together. Well, wasn't it in 2016 that the vote was announced in around 2 a.m? So that gives us about 3 more hours. If that's, if that's how it happens this year, I think I am getting a little excited.
All right, Taylor, I am just not going to join you in that excitement yet because Donald Trump has said that, if he doesn't win, he's getting his lawyers. So with these results so far, where do you see the country going? Biden, it looks as if that's our new president. Where do you see him taking us?
I feel like the scary thing is I feel like no matter who wins, it's going to be a rough couple of weeks. I think there's so much division that there will be outrage no matter who wins. So I think that's pretty sad, but hopefully I'm hoping that Biden is able to bring some unity back to the people. I think that's something that over the past 4 years, people have lost the sense of like American community, and it's very individualistic. Yeah, and I just hope that we are able to come together more.
That's why I wanted to have this conversation with you, Taylor, because, you are our future. And you said earlier that, you're going on to law school. So my final question to you is, what are your plans on creating the change that you want to see in the world and in the future?
Ultimately, what I would love to do is end up writing policy. I feel like the best way to enact change is to really be a part of it. So I'd love to work on bills that focus on fair housing for all people. I'd love to make just our society more equitable and accessible to everyone. I think that's pretty much my overall goal, to be able to enact the change that I want to see. And I think the best way to do that is by being a part of writing our laws, writing our policies. I think that is so important.
Yeah, because that's where change happens.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on to have this conversation with me, a random nobody. I appreciate you. And we're going to talk tomorrow via text to see, officially who's running the show in 2021.
Was there an eviction? Is someone new moving in? Or is it renewed their lease?
Oh,
tomorrow.
Well, all right. We'll find out.
Thank you for having me. This was so much fun. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you so much. You are more than welcome. Guys, remember that name because Taylor is going to do big, big things. It is now 1:51 in the morning and Joe Biden still is in the lead as far as electoral votes are concerned. However, I am not going to be excited as of yet. I'm going to wait it out and wait until someone is actually declared president. So thank you so much for tuning in with me today. I appreciate you, everyone who answered my call. I appreciate you. Even if you didn't answer or you weren't available, I appreciate you as well. Guys, if you're not already subscribed to my podcast, I ask that you do so on Apple. You just hit the subscribe button and you can also leave me a review. 5-star preferably, but 4, 3, 2, 1, whatever you're feeling. On Spotify, you can follow me, and on Anchor, you can favorite me. Check me out on Instagram, I'm Random Nobody, and on Twitter, I'm Random Nobody1. If you'd like to send me an email, you can email me at randomnobodypodcast@gmail.com. And check out my website. Sign up for my email list because I've been sending out some pretty dope emails. All right, maybe they're not dope. They're all right. But they're going to get dope one day. My website is www.conversationswitharandomnobody.com. So until next time, walk good. Translation, be safe.
Started from the bottom, look where we end up, on top like Pac. All eyes on us, blessings. Count my blessings. No more worries, no more stressing. No more stress. With every loss there comes a lesson. Lord, all I'm asking is protection. Count my blessings. I wake up and count my blessings.